Just want to say thanks to everyone that would presented before me. It's been, I think I had my smile on my face the entire time, 17 presentations. Everyone who presented today has done something very unique to the project, and I still can't believe there were 17 presentations today. I remember the first BigBlueButton Summit, and there's only a few of us that got together, so really, really cool. So as Fred mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the future UI BigBlueButton. So prior to this, I've explored a little bit, very conceptual designs. You might have seen through Fred's presentations, just concept sketches. But a lot of this week, a lot of my focus was how do we actually take those concept sketches and bring them to life? So as you all kind of heard Fred, again, our focus has always been to ask the question of how might we deliver the world's most effective virtual classroom that maximize applied learning, but also now the hybrid classroom, and even how does that adapt to like one-on-one sessions or meetings in a business setting. So really taking all of this together and keeping in mind as we talk and work on the future of BigBlueButton. So the way I work, the way we think about product, Fred, myself, Anton, and some of the core individuals that work on the feature sets is really, we want to empathize with the user, define their needs, ideate, prototype, and test. So I'll walk you through kind of this process and then where we're at and what the next steps will be. So again, just wanted to kind of showcase, refamiliarize everyone here that uses BigBlueButton, but this is what it looks like today. This is what people around the world are using. And we get a ton of feedback through open issues on UX. We get emails, we get the BigBlueButton Google group, a ton of activity. And we've actually had the pleasure, again, over the last year or so to talk to individuals from around the world. I think it's so amazing to talk to people from different regions and how they use BigBlueButton to teach and learn online. We've done a lot of research efforts to distill this information into insights. We have some behavioral archetypes. But just want to kind of, again, I've talked about this in different sessions, but really we care about the user and we've learned a ton about them and really want to take BigBlueButton to the next step. So for the future, really, it's like the challenge for me is like, how do we build a scalable solution that meets all of our user needs? That is, again, back to the goal of the effective online classroom. Again, hybrid. I love hybrid. It's been talked about a ton this week. The folks at MConf have spent a lot of time, really a lot of good thinking, but then the traditional meeting. So we see BigBlueButton here on the screen. Well, not my screen, but you guys are all using BigBlueButton here. One of the things I wanted to do is just take a step back, relook back at the insights that we've captured for the users and start to build some foundational structure changes for BigBlueButton. Not far off the way we have today, but really organizing them in a more structured way. So it all started at basic wireframe. So you can see here of how we're starting to think about, or how I'm starting to think about how BigBlueButton can really be. So left-hand toolbar, top toolbar, we can define what that means, and then you can start to see we have quite a large space here of open space for interactions, right? We have the core BigBlueButton, but what Tiago and some people here showed today is like an nth level of what plugins could provide to BigBlueButton. So from there, I started to really define, okay, what does this mean? Like, where can things go? Like, what is the plus button? Where does those things potentially live now in BigBlueButton? So really the idea, and again, these early ideas have been explored in parallel with MConf and the designers on their team, but could we put the main actions of BigBlueButton in the left-hand sidebar? Today, we hide our core features, but when someone like a teacher comes to BigBlueButton for the first time, we want them to become familiar with the product, know exactly what they're getting themselves into. And then what's also cool is in the future is like, how do we start supporting plugins? Like, what does that mean to the interface? And here I just, really rough concept, but like, plugins could live and be integrated. They feel natural to the BigBlueButton. But if we have plugins that are a bit more, need parameters that are more complex, we could add them in the sidebar, and it scales really, really nice. No more plus button that has everything. So really started to define some core areas. Up top, not far from what we have today, but one of the biggest things was, can we give the user more space for collaboration and move things that are right now at the bottom of the client to somewhere tucked away with that, you might use once or twice, like turning your webcam on or etc. So again, Still playing around with this, but wanted to put some really nice definitions into place. So my thinking was in the top right-hand corner could be you as a user. Your items are up there. So now what does that mean with adding more things back into the interface? So here started the experiment. Okay, well, our traditional presentation, what does that look like in BigBlueButton? What does the UI look like for the controls? How do we make it similar or look and feel look like part of the TL draw component? Like it is part of BigBlueButton, but how does this, it doesn't look different, it looks seamless together. So here's a concept around the presentation. Back to the grid video layout. There's people that want to just use BigBlueButton in pure video conferencing. So how could that UI here support that need for individuals around the world? And then the traditional whiteboard. It might just be a student and student working together on a math problem. Can they just come into BigBlueButton, launch it, and if they want to add more elements to the interface, they can using the sidebar. But really, out of the gate, could it just be a whiteboard for them? And then now you're going to start to see things grow. So again, we got to make this kind of meet the needs of what we have today in BigBlueButton. And so you kind of start here, like where do the webcams live? Traditionally on the top. And then we have chat. Chat opens up on the left. Again, not far from what we have today. Visual improvements from the UI, making it look different, right? As Fred mentioned earlier today, before the pandemic to now, you used the BigBlueButton before the pandemic and you used it today, visually it might not look different. So here's another proof of concept here where we are, instead of the one sidebar that has DMs on top of your users list, it's really isolated into two different areas. So right here would be an isolated users list, but the additional thing with some individuals that really like to know analytics of their users, instead of having the user analytics dashboard be a new tab, it's like, how do we ask ourselves? Like we ask ourselves, can we integrate this information back into the client so the teacher can quickly scan as they're teaching? Again, hands off, like really, like I'm here right now, I'm hands off, right? Trying to have a conversation with you. And if I had BigBlueButton here with the engagement, I could look at that at a glance as well. How do we go to a step further and really maximize the interface? Can we start to add more things? And we've got a lot of feedback of like, can the public chat be on the right, can be on the left? Can some users really want true flexibility? So could there be a concept where we dock bars on the right-hand side? And what would that look like? It does, the downside is that it does provide a lot in the interface on a small screen, but if individuals have a monitor that supports many columns of information, could we have an interface that could scale for them? And then lastly, there's an interesting concept transition here where BigBlueButton today is fixed, right? We're in a presentation mode, we're in the desktop share mode. But with the stuff that Kurt has shown with the infinite whiteboard canvas, it's what happens if there's a world where BigBlueButton can actually detach from the presentation and a layer higher. So started an experiment with, can you dock away from the presentation and be a level higher where you start to interact with the whiteboard, and maybe there'll be other things in the interface. So for example, like maybe there would be a pre-defined breakout room where students can self-assign and bring them back in. So the concept of, could there be objects in the interface in a whiteboard setting where, if you want the presentation, you dock the presentation. If you want to jump to breakout rooms, you undock with the breakout rooms. If you want to open space to collaborate, you just undock from either of those, and you're now in this infinite whiteboard canvas. So as a part of the design process, you kind of want to go to those extreme cases where you really converge outwards to just really test the waters of what could we do with this interface. And that's kind of what I've done here with this concept. Again, the docking experience too, and then on top of that, we've gotten so much feedback around breakout rooms being more information. Actually, really what it is put yourself in the shoes of a teacher who is in a physical classroom. That's okay. Can the 25 students, can you break into 5 groups of 5? And what that teacher does and can see at the front of the classroom working. So how do you recreate that into BigBlueButton? So this concept here really takes a lot of that, where you have that aerial view of everyone working, and you can dive in and support them as you can see fit. Templates, right? Kurt showed a really great example of how he could do templates today in a week sprint on at the summit, but could we have more refined templates for, use cases of education to the business setting, and could those be pre-filled within BigBlueButton at an arm's length that you can one-click action pre-fill some templates leveraging TL Draw? And again, the transition, if you just want to be in a collaborative mode, just close the interface like we can today, and just you have this larger space to work. And then from there, as I'm going to transition, is I started after kind of defining some core areas of the interface. I just started to really experiment and go wild with what some features we have today, some features we talked about. I'll just quickly run through them right now and then chat about next steps, and I'll pass it over to Fred to close out today's session. So here we're talking about ChatGPT and AI. Can BigBlueButton read the slide? And we have this icon here at all times. So if you click, it reads the slide, one-click pull for the user. Breakout rooms. We've talked about evolving smart slides, but with the word breakout rooms and a few room names, can we one-click action of breakout rooms? Again, one of the biggest pain points with BigBlueButton today is the time and effort it takes to set up a breakout room. Can this be done beforehand with the slide and a one-click button? That would really speed up the classroom with breaking students into those different areas. A little bit kind of out there, the plus button has been widely talked about within the community right now. Like, where could it live? Played around with it. Maybe it lives on top of the presentation. Maybe it's part of the presentation module itself. Fred shared a really interesting use case where maybe teachers are teaching the subject matter and then sharing their desktop to do some kind of hands-on learning, and then wants to toggle back to the presentation. So how can we do that today in BigBlueButton? We can do it, but it's very cumbersome. So could we have like a tab-like interface where the content area is streaming back to the users, the students, but the teacher can quickly just toggle between the two? So screen share, presentation, etc., or desktop. We're getting a lot of feedback around, can we do this through plugins as well, like share documents and collaborating on documents? And here's a quick concept around only Office, emojis, emoji bar. I guess I can't see it up here, but up top, if these students, again, click the emoji bars, where would it live within the interface? It still could live at the bottom, but still giving the user a ton of space to work and collaborate with others. And then in some school settings, like maybe this is a feature that's enabled by default. Like the younger grades teachers might want to leverage this toolbar to just kind of get some quick feedback on the students. Cone of silence, the idea of, can we have kind of a side conversation right now? Like imagine I just pulled Fred, we had a quick conversation. Like how would we do that in BigBlueButton? So could this live in the context of a DM? It's the kind of early idea that I explored this week. Whiteboard vision, put that in the context of the new UI. Emoji streaks, we have emojis now, the reactions. I should stop calling them emojis, but more reactions. And we had this really interesting idea around the streaks. Like imagine if there's a bunch of people that are providing feedback at the session. Can we cluster them somewhere for the teacher to consume them in a kind of a condensed format? You've probably seen this before, but pulling data back from an LMS, we have a sidebar. Meeting details, like a one-click details about the meeting. Right now it's buried in the chat. Could we have an area where we click it, specifically the title of the session, and does it open up a modal where you can have all the necessary information? And to give you kind of an inside look of what my Figma file was this week, this is how kind of crazy I got to with a bunch of different things around BigBlueButton. It's been a fun week. Fred and I had the pleasure of pulling some individuals aside, show them some early designs, and that's just the beginning of what's next. So what is next? It's be able to prototype these ideas, go and talk to people around the world, capture feedback, iterate the concepts, and continue building this loop until we're really happy with the solutions. And the solutions can be the overall layout, it can be specific features, etc. But we will follow this process until we feel good as a community, and we'll from there move forward with various things that I showed here today.